Hmm. And so we begin. Well, we're going to be here all day and all evening as we start to track a winter storm that is going to be rather complicated. Now, there's some locations that are going to see a bit of a wintry mix, especially around the I-95 corridor that will change over to snow. Along the immediate coast, you see some rain, some sleet, and eventually you'll get some snow. This storm really comes down to the timing of the cold air transport. Now, with a weaker storm, which was kind of my forecast from the start, which is why I constantly stayed away from the European guidance. I mean, should I say the Canadian guidance? Yeah, the CMC, where it was driving a lot of warm air and then crashing down with cold air. This means that the cold air transport is going to be a little bit slower. But again, that's part of the forecast. So let's dive into the observations, and we'll be following this every hour. So we're starting in the 10 o'clock hour, we're getting the observations, and then we'll do 11, 12, so on and so forth, until about 10 p.m. or when the storm actually tapers down. So a few points here. The going forecast is looking pretty good right now. Obviously, I know that there are some outlets out there, even the government, just doing some adjusting up and down and left and right. My philosophy is that you create a forecast, you have the observations, you stick to where you're at, and then you adjust as the storm actually evolves. Not try to change the forecast last minute, creating a lot of confusion. So, where are we at right now? We're going to be using this map quite a bit. This is the SPC.NOAA, and we're looking at the development of frontogenesis here, and that's why we're starting to see snow breakout on our WeatherTap radar and surface map. Now, here is our low pressure system. This is essentially going to consolidate. There's our moisture transport from the subtropical jet stream. There's just going to be a ton of moisture sitting out here. And we have our cold air starting to press in, and light snow is already starting to break out pretty nicely here over portions of east central Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, along the coastal plain, we have been steadily warming up as expected. We have temperatures in the mid to upper 30s, a few lower 40s out here on Long Island. All this is pretty much within what was expected in the forecast. So, no, the storm isn't weaker, stronger, further west, further east, north, south. Let's see, warmer, colder. It's pretty much in line with the forecast that's expected. The polar cold front is now off the coast. This is going to was basically going to set up our railroad tracks for our low pressure system, and our Arctic air is back here, getting ready to basically move through the Appalachian Mountains. Our polar air mass with fresh polar air mass with temperatures in the 20s and 30s are setting up light to moderate snow over east central Pennsylvania. And then here is where we are waiting for our event. And again, the wet bulb temperatures, given the temperature and the dew point right now, supports around freezing. We're going to wait for that true Arctic air to build in, which it will. So right now, again, the expectations here is pretty much in line with what's expected. We are starting to see some indications of virga here. I haven't seen any observations of actual snowfall in northern New Jersey yet. No observation showing up on the weather service here. So we'll wait to see. But this is virga, which is expected. So that means that there's dry air and the moisture is falling into this dry air and evaporating, which is going to lead to some cooling taking place over northeastern Pennsylvania and northwestern New Jersey. Meanwhile, further to the south, down towards central Pennsylvania and southeastern Pennsylvania, we're starting to see precipitation break out. So, what we're going to be watching for is the interaction of this feature with all this moisture as the Arctic air drives in. You can see the nature of this Arctic air mass in that it is so cold right now at 10 a.m., about 10:20 a.m., that the satellite picture is picking this up as a high level cloud tops. But in reality, this is the actual nature of the ground. That's the cold air on the ground that is being picked up here. Just to kind of give you an idea of what type of Arctic air mass we're dealing with here. Now, obviously, we're not going to be around minus 20 and minus 30 and temperatures like that around our neck of the woods, but again, to give you an idea, by tomorrow morning at this time, we'll be struggling to break 12 degrees on the coast. That is the type of cold air that we have advancing here. So now we just wait to see, and we'll be following this throughout the day as the storm evolves and as this feature begins to interact with that Arctic air and set up our surface wave of low pressure out here. Just want to show the cold air transport. This is 850 millibars. So here's our 850 millibar temperatures here. Again, you'll probably start off as a mix of snow and rain on the coast. And then as the surface temperatures, as the cold air transport begins to pull down towards the coast, you'll see your temperature steadily fall off. So again, we'll just be keeping an eye on this scenario here and the temperature advection, which you can already see. Cold air transport starting off at the mid levels. And we're going to be also watching out for the development of what we call frontogenesis. Right now it's relatively weak. That's going to set up your potential for your banding of the snowfall. So forecast remains the same. Again, right along the immediate coast, we're looking at 1 to 4 inches of snow. Let's say Wildwood, Cape May, Atlantic City, up towards Lakewood, throughout the entire Jersey Shore. Again, the basis of the forecast, the longer it takes to change over, the lower your snowfall totals will be. If it changes over fast, you're looking at that 4 inches. Same thing on much of Long Island. The faster the snowfall totals, the snow transitions, the higher your snowfall totals will be. 1 inch is likely if it takes longer. And again, same idea here in our 4 to 8 inch range. Now, here I'm not so much worried about rain. I'm worried about sleet. This could be a real icy mess if you're stuck around 4 inches around Cherry Hill, Vinland, up towards Trenton, towards Freehold, Monmouth County, and up towards New York City and the South Shore of Long Island. This could be a real messy, icy mess if we're stuck with a prolonged period of sleet and then we change over to snow to end this after 5 p.m. Around 8 inches will be possible at the high end. This is especially true if we get mesoscale banding. Now, let me give you a little heads up with this mesoscale banding. There are going to be winners and losers in this scenario. In this section is where I see the best potential of mesoscale banding because our isotherm at 850 millibars is going to set up between -6 and -8 in this region before dropping south. And in this region, that's why I have 6 to 8 inches for most people. I kept the 10 inches in there. I have low confidence in achieving the 10 inches, but it's kind of a balance between the rising snow ratio and this mesoscale banding. Somebody is going to get that 10-inch mark, most likely somebody in the higher elevations around here. But you're going to see a lot of mesoscale banding setting up here and here between these two thermal gradients. And between that mesoscale banding, somebody in between it is going to lose out. And I wouldn't be surprised if they underperform because of when you have rapidly rising air, you have to sinking air somewhere else. And so don't be surprised if that happens here. But that's also the reason why with all this lifting occurring here, why I have only 3 to 6 inches out here, because there's going to be some of that subsidence and weakening of the snow shield on the back end here, even with the rising snow ratios. So themes we're going to be watching over the next couple of hours: development of the precipitation shield, the transition of the temperatures at the surface, see how warm they get, and then how fast they start to fall off. Then the development of mesoscale banding and the rate in which the Arctic air starts to bleed in, which will start to increase the snow ratios and enhance the potential for your higher end of the snowfall scale. That is your update for this hour. We'll be back at 11 a.m. In the meantime, stay safe out there.